When we're leading in complexity, we really need to lean into a trial and error approach, right? Because there's no way of knowing in advance the best way to move forward.
In this video, we're going to talk about the implementation phase of a social change project. We're going to have a guest speaker, Jessica Conrad, who is going to speak about the Cynefin framework. My Welsh is not very good. And why social change work is complex and what we as social change leaders should do about it.
I'm here to talk with you today about complexity. So it's not uncommon that you've probably heard people say, oh, our world is becoming increasingly complex, as are the challenges we face. But what does complexity really mean, and what does it mean for our social change or social impact work? So what's key to understanding the difference between a complex systems as opposed to simple, complicated, chaotic, etc., is really understanding the relationship between cause and effect. So in complex systems, this relationship between cause and effect, we can't know in advance what effect our actions are going to have. Let's consider an example to make this a little bit more concrete. So let's say that you are driving a car in heavy traffic and you want to make a lane change. And given what we know about complex systems and their characteristics, we could say that driving a car and making a lane change in heavy traffic is actually navigating a complex system. So in the Cynefin framework, it advises the best way to approach problem solving given the system state, right? So the Cynefin framework suggests that we probe, sense, and then respond when we're working in complex systems. So in the case of a lane change, that would mean we would probe the situation. So we would put our blinker on to indicate that we're going to make a change and make basically a small test to see whether or not our action is moving in the right direction. Right, so after we probe and we put on our blinker, then we sense into the environment. What's happening in the environment? Are people making space for us to change lanes? Are they not? You really have to pay attention, of course, as a driver to make sure that you're executing this change in a safe manner and that you're responding to what's happening with the other cars around you. And then the last thing that we do, of course, is then to act, right? Or we respond. So if these cars create space for you, then you can amplify, quote unquote, your action and really move into that other lane. Or let's say perhaps the cars didn't see you, and if you were to change lanes, you would cause an accident. So then, of course, you would not go ahead with that change, and you'd try a different approach to changing a lane. So in these complex challenges, every action is emergent, right? So none of this can be predicted in advance. The behavior of the system can't be predicted in advance. So what that means is that we can apply patterns and principles based on past observations to our decision making, but we have to apply them in every unique situation. So what that means is that there's no predetermined set of steps that enable us to achieve a certain outcome in a complex system. What does all of this mean for the work of social change and social impact? Well, it means that we're leading in complexity. And when we're leading in complexity, we really need to lean into a trial and error approach, right? Because there's no way of knowing in advance the best way to move forward. So it's all about responding to the environment and what we're seeing when we take a certain action. Is it advancing us toward our goal? If not, okay, then we need to adjust and take a different course of action, right? So in this domain of complexity, there's no best path forward, but we can use our instincts and we can really sense into and step into those actions that do lead us in the right direction.